died. And the original thought was that he died of a heart attack because it was such a panic. We found out later that he died of asphyxiation from the dust that day. So everybody was in Lower Manhattan was affected by this day and working down there that day after. So while I was in the stock exchange, they secured a room for the immediate victims that were totally covered with this dust. And you were covered with this film of white stuff, grayish white powder, and people were choking, vomiting. It was a very uncomfortable sight. So they secured an area. They at the stock exchange, they had a health department there where they had doctors, and doctors came down and tried to administer health to get everything. And then the exchange brought around garbage pails, filled them up with water and rags so we could put them over our faces to help us deal with the dust. And from there, we couldn't leave because you didn't want to go outside because it looked like a tremendous blizzard. It was just this white, grayish white powder all over the sky and the air that day, and the streets. You looked outside, it was like an inch of this powder. So you stayed in the building, and then you heard another explosion, and the other building came down. I was talking to a fireman, and he said that the noise, the sounds we heard were the floors falling down. But I am kind of suspect of that because I'm not promoting a conspiracy or anything like that. I don't think our government had anything to do with this. This was strictly a terrorist attack by another nation, by an outside source, I should say. That we heard you heard explosion, more than one explosion, and then you heard the collapse of the building. So we were locked into this building, and then around 1 o'clock, they told us we had to leave. So we took our rags and dipped them, washed them again in the water and the sinks, whatever we could, and then I got a hold of a friend of mine who lives in Mayapack, and I said, why don't we stick together? We don't know what's going on that day. And he says, I got another guy I'm sticking together also. Why don't the three of us go out and just stay together that day? So we had to go out on Broad Street and walk down towards the South Street Seaport. Now, it was like walking in an inch or two of snow. It was this grayish white thing, and people were covered, and people would drop, but thank God there was ambulance that were driving around, and they would just pick people up and put them in the back of the trucks. They were taken away. And when we got to, we had these rags over our mouths, but you still were choking, and you were covered with this soot. And when we got to by the South Street Seaport, it was a little clearer, but there was still an inch of film on the ground of dust and everything. And at that point, some of the people in the maintenance buildings at those places were giving people dust masks to cover their mouths with. So we took that, and then we got to South Street Seaport, and we had to walk, because obviously we're from Westchester, northern Westchester. We had to walk up the east side of Manhattan, and north of Brooklyn Bridge, and you have to applaud a lot of the New Yorkers. People lined the streets up, and they were handing us water and stuff. You could see, obviously, the people they were in Lower Manhattan, and people were helping each other out left and right, which was a great compliment to the people of New York. And it was just such a trying experience. There was other events. You saw I saw people. I would sneak out before the buildings come down to see what was going on. and you would just literally see things coming out of the building, and you knew there were people. So you turned your head and you went back in the building, but you didn't know what was going on all the time. It was totally in a state of surreal that you didn't know what to make of it. There was, it was not something that you would ever want to live through or see again, and hope to God, knock on wood, that our government has stepped up to the plate and has addressed these issues, that they won't come back in. When I got to, going back to when I was leaving, going north from South Sea Seaport, there were helicopters and fighter jets flying over. Every now and then you heard a jet go over, and you would go to doorways and hang and hide in the doorway because you didn't know what was going on. Mm-hmm. So then my friends and I, we walked up, and we, how often, if I ever walked up from Wall Street to Grand Central, I would walk up Broadway, and we were going on the east side, so I wasn't familiar with the area. So I remember going to one part, and then we decided to cut over, and we cut over by Gramercy Park, and on the south side of Gramercy Park, there was a temple there, and all these ascetics were hanging out. We walked through the park. On the other side of the park, for 2 city blocks, it was lined up with cabs, which we thought were very odd. And so from there, we said, well, we're not going to stay here. There's something going on here. I mean, you don't have 2 city blocks of cabs, and then you have a temple on the other side. Obviously, some of the cab drivers back then, or maybe they still are, Middle Eastern men, and so it wasn't an area that we wanted to stay in. So finally, we worked our way up to Grand Central, and we got to Grand Central, and they just opened it up. So they made an announcement, there's 1 train going north. So as everybody ran to it, and we got on the train, and you kind of ran into people from the trading floor that you knew, or you knew from up here. Just you kind of, said hello to each other. You knew everybody was okay, and from there you said a prayer, thanking God that you're still alive. And then the train, for one reason or another, they took us off that train to put us on another train, and finally we got up, and it was like a 2-hour train ride maybe 2.5-hour train ride from Grand Central up to Katona, where my car was. And when I got home, it was, I guess in that day you're in a survival mode, but the things you thought about were your family. And that's the most painful part about it, and my children, my wife, and stuff like that.
Well, it's great that you let the people know how your day was. And people have to realize, have to keep this alive, the memory of the people.
Especially New Yorkers. This was right here. This is people that are affected as well. Westchester County was one of the first responders to the mess in Lower Manhattan. It was amazing how many people came together that day and that year afterwards. But I think we're falling back to this level where it's September 10th, 2001, where people are callous and they're not realizing this wasn't an event that happened here in New York. I have relatives in California who said to me, well, haven't you gotten over this yet? And I say, no. Have you gotten over your last earthquake over there? You don't get over this. It's something you have for the rest of your life. It's not it's an event that should really wake up this country, and we should be more responsible to each other. Our government should be more responsible to the public. We should hold our politicians more accountable that this never happens again. And right now, where I feel a lot of things are going is our politicians are in the September 10th mode. They're not in the September 12th mode. And